Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Who do you think is a cricketer that represents, who would have been a chartered accountant in a different life?
Dhoni would have been a good chartered accountant, right? Because resilience, patience, lot of patience, very, very calm, strategist.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode. We talk to a lot of people from the industry. They typically are MBAs because we are, after all, inside IIM.com. But over time we've figured out that we want to venture out. We want to talk to a lot more professionals in a variety of industries who come through different entrance exams, different courses. In that pursuit, we've started this entire space where we are also going to be talking to chartered accountants who've gotten into interesting careers. To kick off that, we have someone with us who's very studious. When you look at his profile, he was a 45th. He got a 45th rank in his CA exams. Post that, he worked at Morgan Stanley for a few years before starting out on his own. Something unique that I don't hear a lot of CAs do. So we're going to talk to him about that. We're going to talk about this business that he started, which used to be called Vito. It turned into Vito Altor later on, and today it's called Native. It's in the space of executive recruitment. So we're going to talk to him about his business as well, and we're going to talk to him about a lot of other things, like why are CAs so boring. And I want to introduce you guys to the guest today, Saket Jain. Saket, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me to this amazing platform of Inside IIM.
Okay, Saket, to begin with, I want to narrate my history with CA. Wasn't really interested in finance, but I had to do this beast called articleship. I approached this CA firm, and he said that you'll learn a lot. I'm not going to pay you anything. And that's when I decided that CA is not something I want to do, because it seems like too much ado about nothing. So of course around me I had a lot of batchmates who went on to do CA, went on to have very successful careers in finance, in consulting, some even in startups. I want to understand from you, what prompted you to take up CA as a course when you were a student?
The avenues of career choices at that time were very, very limited, right? For a commerce graduate who's academically good and wanted to be a little bit stable in their career decisions, chartered accountancy turned out to be a natural choice, right? And then if you started young and you started clearing exams, then that becomes like a serious pursuit. Academically, it's one of the toughest examinations in the country, right? I'll rate it on par with some of the most toughest competitive exams because it tests your resilience in a very different manner.
I've noticed that there are two kinds of CA students. One set is this genius set who really understands finance really well, and they don't have to work for like 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And then there is this normal set, people like me, lesser mortals, who work for 12 hours a day, day in and day out. Some people then overcome that fear of finance, fear of numbers, fear of understanding what this world is about. And then there is this others who just languish. What kind of a student were you?
Fortunately, I was academically always bright. It worked to my benefit of not having to struggle a lot to prepare for CA examinations. But even on the other side, talking about, say, students like you, this profession is a lot about emotional resilience, right? If you're able to tackle that in your life at that stage of 18 to 21, 22 years old, then it's not a tough examination. Whether you balance it with work or whether you just focus your time on studies.
After you became a CA, you went into Morgan Stanley. Tell us about that journey, entering a firm like that.
Morgan Stanley was not the first job. I changed 3 or 4 jobs. I started my internship with RSM and then into taxation, and then went to Ernst & Young, into taxation again, and then joined Morgan Stanley investment banking and had a stint with BMR again. My reason to switch so many jobs was, I always knew I wanted to opt out in life, right? I didn't imagine myself as a banker or a partner in a big four. I kept on hopping jobs to get more exposure to different kinds of careers and how best practices in some of these best run companies happen.
Saket, typically after someone finishes his or her final CA, they'll either look at tax or audit, or want to go into industry, into corporate finance, or any of those functions in treasury, etc. So if your eventual goal, the way in your case it was that you want to start out on your own and do something on your own, what is the ideal route to that?
I think there's no one navigation path today. Chartered accountants today may not be so, rigid about step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. In fact, I finished reading a very interesting book recently called The Range, and it's such an eye opener that just keep on exploring different avenues despite whatever your professional background is, whether chartered accountancy. My recommendation is, don't box yourself into an audit or a taxation or an internal audit or a forensic or a due diligence or a risk advisory kind of zone. There's nothing wrong with this profession. They're brilliant professions, and if you like, that's what your calling in life is, do kind of get into it.
Right.
But just broad base yourself, and there is enough of broad base and acceptance of chartered accountants in the current scheme of professional entries across various career avenues.
Right. Let's spend a little bit more time on your experience at EY and Morgan Stanley before we come to your startup. I want to understand when organizations like these are open to hiring CAs, they are also hiring MBAs, they are also hiring people from other courses. You join a generic batch in that sense, and you have colleagues from different backgrounds. What were some of the benefits you saw of your background compared to theirs, and what were some of the improvement areas that you noticed that your course had not prepared you for?
The thing in chartered accountancy as a profession is, there's an all India application which happens from every corner of the country, right? And the exposure that you get in your early days in college, in your schooling, in just the environment around you, makes you as a complete personality, from your soft skills, from your ability to engage, have a conversation, articulate, your writing skills. I think the professional course of chartered accountancy misses that out, right? It's been tried a lot through various formats of, post-qualification, GMCS courses and so on. But those 4 weeks, 5 weeks doesn't solve the problem, right? It's the same difference between a tier 1 MBA and a tier 2 and a tier 3 and a tier 4 MBA. To get into some of these companies, your preparation happens much before chartered accountancy also, right? It happens in the entire ecosystem in which you come across as a professional, a very, very high emphasis on soft skills,
right?
And ability to kind of just engage into a conversation. So I think that helped in my favor, and that naturally works well for people living in metropolitan, right? Not to say that other cities don't prepare you for that, but my strong recommendations, if you aspire to get into some of these companies, start navigating your early stages in your career very, very carefully as to wherein you get exposed to some of these aspects.
When you made your decision of becoming an entrepreneur, what were some of the things? I mean, how does a finance guy who's very attuned to opportunity cost, understanding हर एक का you're making a project plan that इसका future earnings इतना हो सकता है, right? How did you approach this decision, whether to stick around at Morgan Stanley and continue on an investment banking career and maybe make partner or something one day, versus starting out on your own, becoming an entrepreneur in an industry?
The one backup plan that always every chartered accountant has in life is they will trade on the stock markets and make money, right? So my journey started with that very basic idea that I'm going to quit my job because I don't belong to an organization structure. I want to be independent, right? And what am I going to do in life is I'm going to trade on the stock markets and figure it out. That's how my journey started, right? But opting out is not easy. Obviously, I got married at the age of 25, and at the age of 24, I quit my job. Right? So people have their own responsibilities, and we look forward to how they plan their journey in terms of commercials. But for me, going independent was a bigger desire. That was the pain that I wanted to sustain in my life. Up to now, professionally, completing almost, I'm a 2003 batch, so completing almost 18 years. If I were to flash back my life as a chartered accountant, early realizations of being very clear in your head, what is the problem that you're willing to sustain in your life? What is the pain that you want to sustain in your life? If you're able to answer that question, you have to be able to choose what you want to do.
So you made a decision that you want to start out on your own. Let's talk about how you zeroed down on this particular idea, executive recruitment, looking at finance talent to begin with, and then expanding further.
This idea started from a very basic, opportunity that all of us, saw. What I saw initially was when I was at EY and I was at Morgan Stanley. There was a simple concept of referring people.
Yeah.
And if you refer someone and the HR selects them, then you get a referral fee, right? And whatever that amount of money was, 25,000, 30,000 in those days, it was a happy feeling to get that check, right?
Right.
So it seeded from that background that look, we refer and we leverage upon a network, and it makes money, right? So that's how the concept started. That look, can I opt out and do this in a bit more larger, wider format? Now, executive search, in simple format, recruitment, intermediation, right? Companies existed that time also, right?
Right.
But 2007 was a time where 6-7 was a time when India was opening a lot in financial services. The number of investment banks, private equity funds, a lot of new formats of doing business, a lot of interest was coming in, right?
Right.
And there was no organized player who was on this side trying to solve the problem that side, right? When we used to travel to Hong Kong and Singapore, there were bankers who opted out and were doing executive search. We didn't see that pattern in India. The most important thing for any younger entrepreneur is how much money it is going to cost for me to start.
Correct.
Right? It didn't cost it much besides 1 lakh rupee to start a private limited company.
Right.
So all these three things came together. And then the second leg came, which is, some very good set of partners that I got in my journey, right? Who were exactly like me, right? From different backgrounds, from different qualifications, different backgrounds, who thought that, look, this makes sense.
What is the kick in this business? What is the moment of truth when you feel, "Okay, yaar, main sahi kaam kar raha hu. I'm very happy with what I'm doing."
Satisfaction that you get in, helping people and organizations meet each other, right? When you find the skill that your client is looking for, and when you place that skill, and when you see that talent grow in that organization, you feel very, very satisfied that you've been able to solve a particular problem, right? These are growth-oriented companies. These are our initial years of business were maybe 1 or 2 names, branded names helped us start, but the rest of the clients that we signed up were unheard names, right? These were not companies that could have attracted talent so easily. We felt our role being played in terms of helping to market that company in the right manner in terms of getting talent attracted, and when the talent created an impact with them, right? We obviously felt very, very satisfied in terms of that this business does gives you some indirect blessings.
Saket, there was an old movie with Mel Gibson in it, which was called What Women Want. Okay, in that he was able to hear what women are thinking. Okay, that's a superpower that today's students want as far as recruiters are concerned. What do the recruiters want? Okay, and they usually don't get access to what the recruiters really want. But you are a good bridge to that, because you've been listening to recruiters for over 10 years now in terms of what is that they are looking for. So let's start with finance talent. Okay, whether it is entry level talent or maybe people who are like 2-3 years in the industry, what is it that finance companies are typically looking for?
Financial services is a complex sector. You can break a bank into 14 different pieces.
Right.
And each of the piece is a skill by itself, right? Just to narrate, say, investment banking, transaction banking, corporate banking, private banking, global markets, fixed income, institutional equities, NBFCs, fintech, retail, insurance, wealth management, right? These all, let's call them as front office careers. And there are, operations careers, there are support functions, finance, tax, legal, accounts, compliance, and so on. When you break this entire concept of financial services into 17 different pieces, each of them is a skill by itself. In some skills there are 2,000 people, in some skills there are 5,000, some skills there are 10,000 people. And those skills of people play musical chairs. Because of that, the entire demand supply happens. Right? The question is, the most sought for professions in some of these are, say, top end careers like investment banking, like private equity, right? And all of them aspire to get there, right? And they just want that one chance, right? In your early stages of career, my tips to people who want to make lateral careers is the places that you work matter a lot. Right. There is no point getting the rest of the work exposure in a tier 4, tier 5 company that no one knows. Right. So the first thing to do is sign up at places or at organizations that matter in terms of people when they screen your resume, that they can rely upon that, look, he's got trained at these kind of companies. The entry stage at this stage in the country is a little bit more, narrow and filtered. It's pivoted, right? And you got to be part of that pivot because there's a huge demand supply mismatch, right? The demand for some of these aspiring professions is less and the supply is huge, right? So if you have to solve the entry stage problem needs to be solved in a particular procedure only, unfortunately, right? Not every company is yet thinking about the Google style of hiring, right? Not every company is yet into the Netflix manner of social capital and culture building, right? So people have set parameters at the entry levels, and to kill those set parameters, follow a particular procedure. If you're in the mid stage and the growth stage, probably, then what matters is how you've been trained in your lateral professions post your entry, right? And then your career directionally takes that route.
Saket, let's go back to your younger days. You were 21, 22 when you finished your CA, and wide-eyed you entered the world of work essentially, and now you are here running a business. What do you think that you gained in your CA education that still helps you, and what are the skills that you had to pick up along the way, and how did you go about picking those new skills up?
I think my foundation as a chartered accountant has helped me a lot in every stage of this business, including the companies that I worked with, to apply those skills in application to whether decoding a job, whether engaging with a client on solving their problems, whether understanding some of the complex nuances of hiring in financial services, whether using that card of chartered accountancy itself to win a business.
Right.
I think it's one of the most solid professions today in the country, still till date, that I strongly recommend someone who's oriented towards commerce to pursue, even if they are not clear about what they want to do in life, right? Because the base of that profession leads to a lot of fundamental understanding about finance and business per se. When you meet a business owner and they're talking about how they want to scale up their business and grow, and how are they seeing revenues build up, and cost structures and other aspects, you are able to relate all these things very, very easily. If I imagine myself as doing say human resources, right, and meeting a client and he explaining me the business plan and entire financial forecast, I won't be able to relate to it. I can if I learn it. So I think the base level profession has helped a lot in that aspect for us to keep on applying those concepts. Obviously, this business is not as complex as the study of chartered accountancy, right? So
or the businesses that you serve, for example, the financial services businesses.
Right. It's not as complex as it's making. A lot of things that I learned in the journey, and we have this entire concept of 360-degree feedback, and I've received some very, very brutal feedbacks in the last 10 years in my life, right from being a jerk manager to maybe a balance now. I think the entire concept of leadership, the entire concept of team management, the entire concept of organization matrix, the entire concept of HR per se, a guy who's a chartered accountant getting into a human resource business, knowing jack about it, is that I learned in the process, and that I learned from people with complementary skills. I learned a lot from my clients. I learned a lot from my HR counterparts on the client side who taught us. So that was pretty much on the job in terms of learning.
Saket, at the start of the interview, I said that I'm going to ask Saket why CAs are considered boring. So I'm going to come to that question, and I'll tell you why I feel that way, because it's just constantly drilled into our heads. And it's not just CAs, anybody who's interested in finance or anybody who's into finance or into finance careers, there's this perception that especially the mass media guys, the marketing guys give that these are boring guys. Why do you think that perception is there, and whether you agree or disagree with it.
This profession, the need of this profession is always meant for the roots, right?
Right.
You don't see the roots always.
Right.
They are always required to be an independent, trustworthy profession, which on which people can rely upon for certain judgments, right? And hence they are never the crowd who is in the front, right? Because the core of this profession is always taking care of the roots, which is finances of a company. Unlike an MBA who gets taken over for sales roles, for strategy roles, for growth roles, for deal making roles for that matter, chartered accountants' inherent core is take care of the roots, and then some of them opt out, right? Not in huge numbers, and because of that, it's natural to attach boredom to this profession, tag them as personalities who are boring, right? But it's changed a lot, right? Of late, and people have become much more open-ended in terms of their career choices, even if they are chartered accountants.
Right. Thanks a lot, Saket. Thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun.
Some of these campus conversations will keep on leading us to practical insights. Thank you.